Good evening. Firstly, apologies for the delay. I don't think I've hosted a Zoom link to Exeter City that hasn't had a technical glitch yet in my 2 years. So I am striving to do that. Still haven't got there yet, is the honest answer. So apologies. It's a Sunday evening and an important event. So I don't want to slow anyone down or anything like that. So hopefully everyone's all in and can hear okay. I've muted the room purely because we are recording this event and it will be uploaded to our YouTube, Facebook, I believe, all of those sorts of social medias. I think if it's on YouTube, you can get it on anything. So Cam will be the man to explain that better, I'm sure. So that's the reason for everyone being on mute. Candidates have explained that they will just unmute themselves when they speak. And obviously Andrew, who is hosting this evening, will be on mute, unmute the whole time, because we'll be hearing his voice and the candidates. So thank you all for joining. It's certainly the most I've ever had on a Hustings event in the 2 years I've been working with the church. So it's good to see. It's great to see the interest, and even more so, the intro candidates, of which we have 13, which is again the most I've seen, and great for the trust and great for this year's election, which of course is a contested election to confirm. We have 4 apologies for this evening: Quinn, Elliot, Debbie Marrable, Nelson Taylor, and Nikitas Vellis. So they sent their apologies for tonight. So thank you to those that are attending. We did have a number of questions. I believe it was around 15 in the end. The election management group selected 5 for this evening. We would have loved to ask them all on camera. We'd be here till midnight at least if we did. Some of you may want to be here till midnight, but some of you may not. So we went with 5. The rest of the questions will be asked, and that's all questions that have been submitted. I'll be sending those to the candidates this evening to then submit a written response, which we'll then post online Tuesday, by close of play Tuesday. Voting will open following this evening's hustings. Links will be sent via election runner as in previous years. I've set it up for 9:30, so expect it. I think they go out in ways with the number we have now. If you don't get a link by sort of tomorrow lunchtime, then drop me an email and I'll have a look at links. But I'll also be going through the data. We always get a bounce back and things like that. Postal votes have been sent out. There was 92 this year, and those are members with no email address in the system. That's come down a lot, which is good, obviously. I have given them the option. I've set up a ballot box with the shop staff, so obviously you can post it back. But if you want to make sure it's there, drop it into the shop with a ballot box, and they'll be verified by the returning officer. The returning officer, Paul Hurst of FC United, has done it again this year and been great, along with the election management group of Elaine and Martin, who have both been very good and a great help this year in terms of making sure we're doing the correct job this election. I think that's all from me. I'll be timing the first 3 questions. If you hit the minute, I did explain this, but I'll explain this to the room. If the minute is hit, I will put up the emoji, the hands up emoji. I've tried in previous to shout, wave my arms in the air. I'm trying something different this year. Hopefully it works. If it don't work the first couple, I will try and shout. But I don't like to do it because when you're in the flow, it's not great. But hopefully it'll all go okay. I'll be in the room, obviously, for the proceedings. I'd like to introduce Andrew Barge, who will be hosting this evening and asking all the questions as a neutral host. So over to you, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. So, as Dean said, we've had 4 apologies, so we've now got 9 candidates, and we're doing those in alphabetical order. And by alphabetical order, I've done that by your first names. So, the first person up is going to be Gary Quick. There will be an opportunity for all of you, if you want to just do a brief introduction to yourselves, and then I will ask you the first question. So, Gary Quick, if you're there, please.
Yeah, hi Andrew. So this is just the intro bit, is it?
Yes. Yeah, if you want to do an intro, that's fine.
Yeah, I do. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm Gary Quick, married, 2 daughters, live less than 10 minutes from the ground, which is very handy on a match day. Allows me to call into the bowling green on the way down. I'm a 3rd generation Exeter City supporter, following the footsteps of my grandfather and my father. 40-year career in financial services, spanning retail banking, compliance and financial planning. I've been a main board member of a regional financial planning practice and also a long-time school governor looking after the finance and property matters for a local primary school. So that is me.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Gary. So the first question is regarding the laudable aim of having club assets safely held by the trust. How would you propose to leverage any future borrowing required, if not against those assets?
Yeah, so the club accounts actually show sort of fixed assets, I think, in the order of, it's been up and down a little bit, but about 5 million, possibly slightly less than that, with the Cliff Hill training ground, etc., and all the infrastructure there. That's one area that you could leverage against. However, there is an important matter of getting those assets across into the trust ownership, as was promised at the beginning, but has not happened. So if that's the case, then we would look at different types of borrowing, maybe through a bond issue, such as AFC Wimbledon have done, or possibly through the mooted rights issue that has already been talked about by the club. I do believe, however, that we need to get to the core of the problem, which is we need to be meeting our budget each year through our income. You can't borrow indefinitely if you can't balance the books every year. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So moving on now to Greg Newcombe.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Newcombe, 40-year-old, live on the outskirts of Exeter, been an Exeter City fan since I was 7 or 8. Live locally, but work nationally for a national food company. They do happen to be a sponsor of Exeter. However, I'm completely sort of removed from that from a business point of view. A lot of my specialities, which I think I can bring to this, the trust, would be sort of from a commercial standpoint, really, sort of trying to leverage sort of commercial activity and try and improve sort of bottom line with the business as well. And that's my intro, Andrew.
Okay, lovely. Did you want me to repeat the question, the first question, or are you happy to start?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to carry on, Andrew. So okay. I guess really, if the trust own the main club assets, it keeps them safe. But it doesn't mean we can use them to borrow money. Instead, it's an option to borrow against potential future income, like potential ticket sales, sponsorship, or even raise money from supporters, things similar to community bonds, which Gary mentioned just a moment ago. I know AFC Wimbledon have done that, but I know historically a lot of clubs have also gone down that route. We could also look at grants and ways to work with our partners on certain projects. That way we can keep important assets protected, but still have ways to bring in money and keep the club moving forward. Personally, I'm not one for borrowing unless there's a high chance of a strong return. For a club like ours, protecting what we have and growing naturally through improved partnerships, better short, medium, and long-term strategies will in hope raise the acquired funds. But yeah, really, we should be raising funds as our first choice, with borrowing really being the last resort. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so up next is Matthew Moore, please.
Thank you, Andrew. My name's Matthew Moore, based in East Devon. Been an Exeter City supporter for 30 years. Firstly, I run my own recruitment company in Winslade. I've worked with the trust in the past, creating the community trust commercial program for the Fiverside program, and we raised funds for the Cliff Hill. And yeah, that's my intro.
Okay, and you're happy with the first question, or do you want me to read it again?
No, I'm happy with that. So if borrowing ever becomes necessary, I look at realistic income streams, things like transfer money, future sponsorship, season tickets, or supporter share funding and bonds like Wimbledon. I think other people have mentioned that as well. I know we've got £5 million worth of assets. We've got to be able to have the ability to meet our repayments if a loan is taken out against those. The key to borrow carefully and transparently with clear repayment plans, so we've never put the ground or trust or facilities at risk. It's about protecting what we've built and growing solely from that.
Okay. That's all you want to say? Okay, thank you. Right, so up next is Matt Phillips, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many people join this Hustings call. I'm Matt Phillips, I'm 35. I am an exile based up in Manchester, but I've been a City supporter since birth, really, taken to my first game as an 8-year-old by my dad. Grew up in Exeter and moved up to Manchester about 10 years ago. I'm standing for election to help the Trust Board to modernise the Trust, strengthening financial oversight and setting a clear direction for the club with fans at the heart of it. Professionally, I am a chartered actuary, and this brings with it a skill set in financial and project risk management, business planning and governance. And I think that these will enable me to get to grips with the current challenges that I think we're all aware of, but we don't know the details of, and to suggest practical solutions to them. At the heart of my campaign is the development of a new trust club strategy with the aim to work alongside the Exeter City community.
No, you've gone on to mute, Matt.
I don't know if that's because I ran over time, but yeah, this is a really important election, so I'd be grateful for your support.
Okay, and do you want to move on to answer the first question?
Yeah, so I think the heart of the question is to do with ongoing uncertainty about the financial position of the club. It's obviously important that we look to raise funds, but we are already committed from a loan perspective. So I think alternative financing, if it's required, is the route to go down, whether this is crowdfunding or creative solutions based off of some of the future assets that we might have. Ultimately, I think that this question wouldn't be required if there was stronger governance in place. And I think it's really important that the people that you elect look to find solutions for the current situation, but also put in place stronger controls to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
Okay, that's completed your answer. Thank you. So next up is Nick Bryant, please, Nick.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Nick Bryant. I'm a 42-year-old town country planner and local government professional. I live in Somerset. I've been an Exeter supporter, like a number of others, since childhood, so through the 90s and through some pretty desperate times. Also done an awful lot of charity work for the football club through the Adam Stansfield Foundation, doing a couple of very, very long distance charity runs over the last 10 years or so. In terms of what I can bring to the Trust Board, because my background is in local government leadership, so a lot of those skills around governance, around setting strategy, following through on that strategy, and leadership. So that's probably all I'd say for now on that. But I can move straight into the question if you'd like. So I suppose one of the disadvantages of kind of coming after several others is that a lot of what I might wanted to say has already been picked up. But just to re-emphasise, I think the club does have some high-value fixed assets. But as others have said, it's really important that those are safeguarded and as soon as possible transferred into trust ownership. And I think the key thing that we need to take account of in all of this is that we need to make sure that we're using borrowing as that last resort, and particularly for a football club with a relatively small turnover, it's very, very important that we don't end up with prohibitively high borrowing costs, which then kind of hamstring the club still further in terms of its ability to sort of progress on the pitch. So that's all I'd say.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Nick. So next up is Nigel Edwards, please, Nigel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nigel Edwards. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I watched my first game in 1971, and I've been a trust member since 2003. Our football club faces serious financial challenges due to recent governance failures, but my experience, largely in central government, in those areas can help get us back on track. We need to strengthen trust ownership of the club, and that involves getting the training ground freehold and the St James Centre into trust hands as soon as possible, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. We need to modernise the trust, and that involves agreeing and publishing annual plans, clarifying roles and responsibilities, and improving communications. And I agree with Matt that we need a new trust club strategy that should be developed in collaboration with members. That is almost out of date. There's got one that should be in place by now. So basically, I'm committed to openness and putting fans first, and we need to restore trust and build a stronger future for our club. That's enough.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Nigel. So next up is Peter Loader.
I haven't answered the question yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought you. Sorry,
yeah, no. No.
Career in politics, though.
Carry on.
Yeah.
My fault.
So I slightly reject the premise of the question, actually, because the loan from the trust is for the Cliff Hill freehold and the St James Centre. The training ground building that sits on top of the freeholder would stay in club ownership, and that's quite a valuable building. So you could, if you wanted to, if you felt it was a good idea, take out a loan based on that. That's my understanding, anyway. But as others have said, the problem is a cash flow problem. There's not enough money coming in, and there's too much money going out. So that really needs to be fixed, because any bank or financial institution is going to look at whether you can actually afford to service those loans. So the most likely course of action, I suspect, would be a loan from the PFA or something like that. But there are other forms of financing possible. Of course, the share issue could help too. That's it.
Okay, that's time up, yes, Dean. Okay, thank you, Nigel. So next up is Peter Loader, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Loader. I'm standing because I love our club and passionate about our fan-owned model. We've got some challenges at the moment, and I think I can make a difference to overcoming those and taking the club and the trust to the next level. I've recently retired, so I've got time, energy and skills to commit to the trust if elected. Two things I'd do straight away. One, reconnect the trust board with its members, improve communication and demonstrable progress in line with member wishes. For example, professionalising the trust board meeting process would, in my view, solve many issues. Incidentally, I'd attend all of those meetings, and I see them as an opportunity to get to know more members and fellow trustees. Two, work with the club to establish financial stability and maintain it, jointly owned plan with monthly reporting and actions as necessary, holding the club to account as responsible owners and partners. And I'll come to my longer term vision in the wrap-up session at the end.
Okay, lovely. Question number one, your response to that, please.
Okay. Well, clearly, I don't have sight of the latest club finances to know if this is required now, but if it is, then two things I'd consider. One, HMRC can be approached to spread payments, and I imagine other creditors could be as well. Secondly, many transfer fees are paid over the duration of a contract rather than up front. There are businesses that will buy debt at a discount, and that's an avenue I would explore if there's a short-term cash flow problem. So, for example, if we're owed 2 million from Jay Stansfield's deal, can we sell that debt for 1.5 million cash now? Longer term, the trust should apply good governance to prevent such requirements from happening in the first place, with the club living within its means. So the club should retain resilience reserves to enable cash flow management through the season. The trust should retain reserves to protect against unforeseen circumstances. So, like 3 defenders getting injured at the same time, like they did last season. It's a good example of that. Such reserves, if used, need to be rebuilt. There's no substitute for good financial management and governance.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Peter. Up next is Richard Knight. Richard, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine. I can hear you loud and clear, Richard.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Richard Knight. I've been a volunteer for more years than I care to remember. I've been a supporter since 9. Started as a ball boy and doing everything from catering, fundraising, turnstile security, match day PA, through to company secretary, and currently voluntary supporter liaison officer. This experience behind the scenes allows me to have a handle on most club aspects that affect members and have championed supporter experience. And I've always been happy to discuss all things ECFC.
Okay.
No, well, I could continue because everybody else seems to be making a. Outside of football, I was a bank manager, a school bursar, regional charity and finance administration manager, a civil service facilities manager, providing relevance and experience to some of the areas the club and trust is looking for: finance, marketing, PR, commercial business management, and it's included working with equality and inclusion.
Okay, and if we can move on to your answer to question number 1, please, Richard.
Certainly, Andrew. It's very much like everybody else's, to be quite honest. There's no substitute for good governance. It's a very good question. Being a bank manager, I would answer your question out of my lending experience, and my overriding feeling for the Grecians is that its aims over the last 21 years have been to be a sustainable club playing within the highest possible level. Why would we want to change that? To my mind, this is the only way to safely continue to have a club for the long term. We're custodians of the club for future generations. As a lender, I learned that lending security or policy lending only results in disaster. Football is an industry that has seen many financial disasters. Any lending must be covered by a proven, predictable, and demonstrable cash flow forecast. If you don't have a valid repayment plan from the outset, the chances are you won't be able to repay the loan and you will lose the security itself. My first-hand lending experience recognizes that financial institutions do not lend against security. They lend only against a proven income source. For a new building or equipment, this might be validated.
Okay, that's your minute up, Richard.
Really?
It is, yes. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Richard. And lastly, we'll move on to Tony Badcott, please.
Thank you, Andrew, and everybody else present. It's a long wait when you're last on the list, but there we go. Anyway,
you don't have to wait long for the second question.
I'm Tony Badcott. What I would say is it's time for whoever of us on this call who gets elected, we have to face the problems full on. The trust needs clear leadership, clear strategy, and most importantly, everybody around that room, around the table working together. I'm a former trustee. I'm a former club board director. I've been through very similar times. In 2005, I was chairman of the Supporters Trust. We had to endure the fiasco of the Italian Masters, the departure of the then chief executive, and an ongoing financial struggle. We got through that, and we will get through this as well. I've broad experience working in the charitable, public and private sectors. I ran my own successful business for 10 years before selling it in 2023. I'm committed to improved governance, attaining 75% share ownership and ensuring the trust ownership of the training ground and the St James's Centre.
Okay, can we move on to your answer on question
Yeah.
1, please?
So in terms of the borrowing question, for me, the biggest issue here is that we're in a situation in which the club's cost base has spiraled out of control. If I were to liken the situation to people's everyday life, you can't keep spending more than you can afford at Waitrose when you normally go to Tesco. Our expenditure clearly has ballooned, and no amount of borrowing is going to sort out the root cause of why the club's costs are too high, and that's got to be resolved. Basic governance appears too lax. I would end by saying the assets that the club seeks to be borrowing against, those belong to trust members. It's as simple as that. Those have to be vested with the supporters' trust. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Tony. Right, now, because we're going in reverse order, you're going to stay on now, Tony, for the second question, which I will read out just once for everyone attending the meeting. So question number 2 is, how would you improve knowledge of the trust and its work amongst members?
Okay, thank you. That's a very quick turnaround. The single most important thing I would say to the meeting is we have to restore trust in the institution. The trust model itself has been badly damaged in recent months. I would say that confidence in the trust model has taken a knock. I would liken the trust to a classic car, which needs some immediate restoration to get it back to its glory days. The shell is sound, but it needs stripping back and giving a refresh. So we need to restore trust and confidence, firstly by positive communication, and secondly by leadership. One of the ways we help to do so is giving members more opportunities to become engaged in what is, at the end of the day, their trust. When I became involved 20 odd years ago, we had a skills register. Today, we need people with IT skills, finance skills, marketing knowledge. Our membership has untapped skills and tons of experience.
That's your minute up, Tony, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So back to you, Richard, on question number 2, please.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's another good question, and there's a need to restore confidence, leadership and governance. And this can primarily be done through communications, one that I believe we've not really achieved over the last 21 years regularly enough. There's always, in any organisation, a need to continue to listen to what members or customers need. The last few months have highlighted the need to have a deliverable process for answering member questions, especially when one person is trying to field many inquiries. There's an identifiable need to strengthen governance and internal communication within the trust. We've tried regular newsletters, we've sent a lot, but the content needs to be better, providing clearer, engaging updates on projects, successes, upcoming events, and opportunities to get involved. The move to Very Connected provided an opportunity to create a central hub where members can easily access resources, news, networking tools. We need to properly and fully resource the facility, as well as social media groups. Facebook, X, TikTok require a separate resource. Through the members and owners work group, I've been successfully leading on the development of the membership base. Our welcoming email to new members fully explains our mission, structure, and how to participate. But can we do more than that at that early stage? Yes, we can. We could once again.
That's your minute up, Richard.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. So back to Peter Loader, please.
Right, I'm glad this question's been asked, as we should remember that trustees are volunteers and their good work should not be forgotten when other matters result in criticism, justified or not. So my answer ties in with my answer to one of the later questions. In the interest of teamworking, I'd expect all work packages projects undertaken by the Trust Board to have clearly stated objectives, clear plans for achieving the objectives, including who's doing what and when, and reporting of progress against the plans to the Trust Board. Members would therefore see how different trustees are contributing and what the Trust has achieved by regular communication via Trust Board meetings and their minutes. Where appropriate, work should be showcased via the Trust website in its news section. Press releases issued where appropriate, and these would make great topics for a Trust newsletter. We should, in my opinion, be showcasing our fair-known club, not just to ourselves, but locally and the wider world.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Peter. So back to Nigel Edwards again, please.
Thank you. Just really in the last couple of months in preparing for this, I've been looking at the website and trust papers to try and figure out, what the programme is. And it's actually very difficult to get to grips with who is doing what. The whole way that the trust structures itself is very sort of meeting-led, sort of reminds me of working in the civil service in like the 1990s or something. We need to bring it up to date, get a clear programme with projects, timelines and responsibilities of who is doing what. And once you've got that done, it's much clearer for members to understand how they can possibly get involved themselves. So, that's the guts of it. And then once you've got a clear view of the projects, you can then make better use of social media to actually get people involved. I mean, those communicating what's going on in the trust are probably not entirely clear on what's happening because of it. So that's what we need to do, get a clear programme, roles and responsibilities, and that will be the bedrock for it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Nigel. So Nick Bryant, you're up next, please.
Thank you. Again, in the middle. So yeah, absolutely. It's about having a new clear vision for the trust and build upon member engagement. And I think for me, that means having clear, deliverable, measurable goals, having something that we can all coalesce and get behind and be clear on. I think once you've got that, I think as Nigel and Peter said, I think it's then much easier then to communicate those messages and actually show the merits and the virtues in the trust model. That has to mean regular reporting back through board meetings, but also to the wider membership. And I think others have touched upon it really. So that's about clearer, more timely communications, making better use of newsletters, better use of social media. And I think actually from what I've seen that perhaps that Very Connect platform does offer some real sort of potential there. But I think it's also about creating an environment where there's a better two-way flow of information as well, and making more of that cohort of membership. And I think Tony mentioned about having sort of previous kind of always matrices of sort of skills and knowledge, skills and experience within the trust membership. And I think if we can create that better flow, I think that will improve things as well.
Thank you, Nick. Matt Phillips, please.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I mean, I echo a number of the comments that have been made by other candidates. I think the communications is certainly something that the trust can improve upon. You look at the quality of the website and the comms that's pushed out by the club. It's a stark contrast to what we see from the trust. And for a long time, I've thought that there are certain functions that could be shared services between trust and club, and it might be useful contacting or bringing in the media team to support the trust comms. The other area is fans forums. There was great engagement with the last fans forum, even though it's under difficult circumstances. I'd like to see more of those with the trust present and actually all trustees on stage talking through what they've been doing. So we have a clear understanding about actually what the contributions are across the board, not just from those who are pushed into senior roles, because every trustee has to contribute.
Thank you, Matt. Matthew Moore next, please.
Thank you. One of our biggest opportunities is helping members really understand what the trust does and why it matters. I'd like to see more regular, simpler updates, short newsletters, clear summaries online, maybe even brief videos from the board members after key meetings. When people can see what's being done and feel part of it, the trust becomes more than an organisation. It becomes a community again. And that's when we're at our strongest.
Thank you. Greg Newcombe, please.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. From my point of view, many fans and members just no longer feel connected to the trust or its leadership. I think that would be on the trustees to fix. We do a lot of good work, but if people don't know what's happening or why, it doesn't particularly build confidence. If elected, we need to be held account, the new trustees, and I would push for a short action plan each season, maybe with sort of maybe 3 to 5 key objectives, clear priorities of what the trust are trying to get to grips with this year. But then to be held account, I think Matt touched on it just now about quarterly forums. They seem to just not be happening at the moment. I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but I think a Q&A forum, supporters can see progress and ask questions. I would also like to give clear explanations of major decisions, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it affects us all. Another idea would be an online dashboard that could show members our finances, key metrics at a glance, which the trust should be putting into place, which would be up to the collective to collaborate on. It's not really about, this is really just about trust, straight answers, no spin, and the humility to change course when needed. Just by improving communication and being transparent will help everyone understand the trust work and also feel a part of it again.
Lovely. Thank you, Greg. And lastly, Gary, quick on this question 2, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, just echoing what everybody else has said. As I'm last on, there's not much left for me to say, really. I think the engagement with members is key. I think that it's beholden on the trustees to get out there and be actually trying to make as much contact with members as possible, especially on match days, etc. In actual fact, they don't need to be trust members. Just being available and being open and being around to chat to people and making yourself known. I've also felt, as a sort of semi-regular attendee at trust board meetings, that there is definitely a sort of major defensive attitude within the board at the moment. And that doesn't sit well with me in terms of the kind of engagement that's needed for a trustee to gel with their members, etc. And I feel that needs a lot of work at the moment. And more inclusion on working groups is key. There's loads of people out there with loads of skills. They've previously approached the trust. They've not been taken on board. They're still willing, but that only lasts so long. Thanks.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Gary. Stay there, Gary, because you're up again now for question number 3, which in effect is a yes or no question. But I think we can allow a bit of time for people if they want to expand upon their answer. So I'll read out the question again. Do you agree that openness by the trust board is important? And if so, will you ensure that the default position for trust board meetings is that everything should normally be discussed and minuted in part A, open brackets, open meeting, with only genuinely confidential matters reserved to part B, brackets, closed session?
My answer is that yes. I mean, it's in my manifesto. I want as much as possible to be in the open meeting. I raised this at the last trust board meeting on the subject of the membership fees being revised and increased. I didn't see why that should all be discussed behind closed doors. Yes, the trustees responded by saying, well, there was a poll, but that was only the half of it. And I think it was Peter maybe that was also making the point about, what analysis had been done on how many members might leave if the amount went up. And this was all talked about behind closed doors and was delivered as a fait accompli. And there is just no reason why things like that cannot be discussed in an open meeting. I mean, we are all members of the trust. Surely we should get a chance to discuss the membership fees and the reasons behind why they need to be increased, etc. and also the wider issues regarding the funding of the trust and helping the club out. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Gary. Over to you now, Greg, again, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I absolutely agree with Gary. Completely agree that openness is vital. The trust belongs to its members, so they deserve to know what's being discussed and decided. I believe the default should always be an open meeting with clear minutes available to everyone in advance and follow to the letter. Only matters really that are generally private, genuinely private, so personal, legal or sensitive club related issues at that specific time should be discussed in a closed session. But really just going back to probably one of the key words tonight is transparency. That builds confidence and also accountability. And I think that's exactly how we'll learn and keep and also grow the members' trust again. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Greg. Matt Moore, please.
It's another yes for me. Openness is absolutely vital. Members deserve to know what has been discussed and how decisions are being made within the club. My view is simple. Everything should start in Part A, open to members, unless there's a clear, genuine reasoning to move it to Part B, such as legal or personal issues. That build confidence and keeps us accountable, clear communication, strong governance and earn trust. When we lead openly, people will naturally feel part of what we're doing.
Lovely. Thank you, Matt. And the other Matt Phillips, please.
Another yes. I think the issue here is, where is the line? If you spoke to existing trustees, I think that they would probably say that what is captured within Part B is where they deem confidentiality to be. But what isn't explained is why. We still don't get Part B summaries, which I think need to definitely return. And I think there does need to be a clear explanation about what are the red lines in terms of the meeting, whether it's financial, legal, employee related matters. I think we need to understand with more clarity with the members, and it goes back to the previous question around engagement and how the trust board operates. These are points that need to be explained. And I think with more communication, this is something that maybe wouldn't be as much of an issue going forwards. But ultimately, yes, I think as much as possible should be in Part A, with only those truly confidential items being in Part B.
Thank you, Matt. Nick Bryant again, please.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. I think the default position should be to sort of share. I think perhaps there is a role for establishing some guiding principles, if you like, around the information that would be default to being shared versus that which might be held back. Because I think it then helps people to understand a little better perhaps where those sensitivities might lie. But fundamentally, I think it's about the culture that we want to set for the football club, owning our own football club. And I think perhaps a kind of guiding principle that I might want to have is that, the standards that Exeter City Football Club and Exeter City Sports Trust holds itself to perhaps should be higher than other football clubs. And I think that bar needs to be higher as opposed to what it might be under private ownership. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Nigel Edwards again, please.
Hi there. Yes, of course, it's another yes. And in addition to that, to echo, I think it was Matt's comment, we need in the minutes of Part A meetings to actually provide a summary of those items that were discussed within Part B. That hasn't been properly restored. I mean, I would say actually that for the last meeting, if you go to the minutes that are on the website, there is a summary of the Part B discussion. But actually, if you turned up to the October meeting, the minutes that were circulated didn't have that on there. It's almost like someone had taken a decision to remove that or something. I don't know what happened there. We've got to just have clear, instructions that everything comes under Part A unless properly confidential and legal, private issues need to be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Peter Loader again, please.
Bit of controversy in this one. Another great question. Yes, I obviously agree openness is critical. However, my father was not a toolmaker, so I'm not going to give you the answer to the second part that you want to hear just to win your vote. But I will explain why it's a no and my alternative approach. So 2 reasons why. Firstly, 100+ people online and in the room all able to ask questions is not going to result in a productive board meeting. Secondly, I think it would stifle debate amongst trustees for fear of being quoted out of context or simply being made to look stupid with ideas that may or may not be good. So my solution is most of the actual work and discussion amongst trustees goes on in the closed bit, and let the trustees do the job you've appointed them to do. The open bit then has a verbal summary of all of the Part B discussion, an opportunity for members to discuss the decisions that have been taken and challenge those outcomes. And if appropriate, trustees put their decisions on hold in the light of that discussion, pending a review. No information hidden, of course, unless it's highly sensitive. And with what I proposed in terms of agendas and info packs at least a week in advance with questions coming in, and with the ongoing social after the board meeting, where debates can continue informally, strengthening relationships between the board and members, I think that'll be a more productive and effective approach.
Thank you, Peter. Richard again, please.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Oh yeah, there we go. There you are. Yeah.
Okay. I fully agree with everything that everybody's has been saying so far. Who wouldn't agree with it? It's quite obvious, really. It's another good question. And people who know me will know that I welcome as much engagement as possible. Everything should normally be discussed and minuted in Part A, the open meeting, including feedback from Part B. And as such, Part A should always follow Part B. To make Part A constructive, members should also have the opportunity to submit their questions. Only genuinely confidential matters are normally reserved for Part B, the closed section. There was a mention about the minutes, I think, Andrew, and Rule 1266 says that minutes of every meeting are kept and shall be included and read at the next meeting and approved. I think that happens. If anybody wants to take issue with that, please email me separately. The missing part of the rule is sharing minutes early. I think that would be really helpful to people.
Thank you, Richard. And lastly, Tony Badcott again, please, Tony.
Thank you, Andrew. I mean, I see things very broadly similar to many others. However, I do think we need to look at moving the common default position away from secrecy to recognizing we need a bit of a cultural shift. We are a member-owned member organization. We need to recognize that we aren't a secret society. Yes, there will always be, and I've been on the other side of the fence, there will always be issues that have to be kept in Part B, but anything that needs to be kept within Part B should be communicated back to members and a summary of Part B reintroduced. So I'd like to see a bit more of a cultural shift away from the common default position at the moment, which is secrecy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So that brings us to the end of question number 3. Tony, as before, if you can stay there, and I will read out question number 4, which is: a trust board composed of members with differing backgrounds and perspectives can be very beneficial. However, a trust board that is internally divisive can be very harmful. If elected, how would you ensure that the trust board conducts itself in an inclusive, collegial, and consensus-building manner? Tony, please.
Thank you. I think it's we need to be recognizing that in a room of 12 different people, there will always be disagreements. However, debate and discussion, in my opinion, are healthy. Within my professional working career, being seen as a critical friend and being prepared to ask awkward questions should be seen as a strength. However, what's important is always we should be respectful of other people's views, and ultimately we should be looking at seeking a consensus on the way forward. One of the things I do outside of football is I'm currently the secretary of the Exeter and Devon Cooperative Party. So my default position is cooperation and not division, and I see that as the way forward.
Thank you, Tony. Richard, back to you, please.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I've not really got much to say on this. This is a massive subject, which will require a lot of openness and engagement. Inclusivity is a big issue at ECFC from a number of aspects, and we just need to cherry pick the ones that we can win. We need to be really open to making sure we encourage diverse representation across gender, ethnicity, age, and professional backgrounds, and prioritise collaborative debate and decision-making over majority rule. I'd also like to see our code of conduct amended so that the board operates in a manner that is inclusive, collegial, and consensus-orientated. It must actively seek diverse perspectives, foster respectful dialogue, and strive for decisions that reflect broad agreement among its members.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I just noticed there was a question that's come up, and Dean, I imagine you'll pick that up at the end of the meeting if you've seen it. Peter Loader, please.
Hi, yeah, another good question. Firstly, I do agree with the benefits, and I will stress I do plan to vote for some of those on the slate, as it's termed. However, I do think there's a risk that having 6 members elected on a slate and 6 from what one might call the old guard has a risk of increasing division rather than reducing it. So anyway, I think the solution lies in the 3 C's of clarity, communication, and consistency. So for clarity, I mean clarity of overall trust purpose and agreement and that we're all working towards it. Clarity of objectives, such as when debating topics or when we're setting objectives for working groups. Clarity of how projects will be delivered, by who and when. Communication, so that's giving everybody on the board the opportunity to put their views without fear or prejudice. So that's obviously about having a strong chair. Regular progress updates on work, and openness, not little pockets collaborating and scheming on their own. Consistency, so this is the approach that the trust board should be using in all its work. And I had proposed that the newly elected trustees, rather than taking this list, would agree their own set of such principles so that they own them and then can hold each other to account if there's any variance from them.
Thank you, Peter. Nigel Edwards again, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, I've built teams throughout my career, and one of the ways around you can, get people to bond more closely together is to have maybe sort of team building exercises, but perhaps we can then, start to foster a new way of working throughout the trust board. In particular, I think we ought to be able to use the development of a new trust club strategy as a sort of way of getting new goals to work to. And I actually am just coming back onto Peter's point there. I think those of us who have aligned around some broad goals that we've developed then quite individual manifestos to have shown that in very quick time you can bring people together who I didn't know the people that we are aligned with until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and in that time we've developed a really good close team, and I really look forward to doing that with the whole trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Cameron, I see you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask a question, Cameron?
I was just saying it was a minute over. My voice is so bad.
Did the first three. Cam's his time in the last two. That's why he's got his hand up.
Oh, okay. All right. Lovely. So Nick Bryant again, please.
So my background is in local government in various senior leadership roles. So that means working in exactly the way that we're talking here. So across a variety of audiences with different stakeholders, often on quite sensitive and contentious matters, whether that be developers, MPs, government quangos, sometimes government ministers. But I think for me, on a personal level, it's always important that I want to understand different perspectives and different motivations. So we need to make sure that the Trust Board is a place where we can all share those views and we can have that healthy debate and discussion, as others have said, but then hopefully work towards that kind of consensus. So I think, again, it's a really basic principle of good governance. And I suppose the other thing to add to that is in terms of some of the kind of challenges that we faced more recently. I think it's quite critical to ensure that we've got the appropriate financial controls and that appropriate kind of governance in place. And don't forget that also has to include the interaction with the club board as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Matt Phillips, please.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, and obviously, as Pete mentioned and Nigel mentioned, this question might have come about in response to the slate of candidates, which I'm a part of. Personally, I've worked in a number of high-performing teams where culture is critical, and I think everything that's been said so far about positive culture is really important. But I think it's also important to call out bad culture when you see it. And part of developing a good culture is understanding other people's views and where they come from. And I mean, I hope that this doesn't come across as divisive, but it's interesting to see the lack of existing trustees that are participants on this call tonight. I would have thought, as a trustee, I would like to get to know more the people that I might be working with going forwards. And that's the kind of culture that I would like to see, is actually being a lot more engaged with the rest of the Trust Board and understanding everyone's views collectively.
Thank you, Matt. Matt Moore, please.
A good board needs a mix of skills and opinion, but it also needs respect and teamwork. If elected, I'll focus on keeping discussions constructive and always centered on our shared goals. That means listening properly, being open to other perspectives, and remembering we're all here for the same reason, to protect and strengthen the club. I'd support a simple code of conduct for board behaviour, something that encourages mutual respect and clear communication. A united, respectful board sets the tone for the whole trust, and that's how we'll make real progress.
Thank you, Matt. Greg, again, please. Greg Newcombe.
Yeah, thank you. I really believe a strong trust board is one where everyone feels heard and respected. Like everyone's touched on, healthy debate. I'm sure we won't always agree, but our differences really should make us stronger, not divided. If I'm elected, I want to encourage open conversations where every idea is considered and we stay focused on what our shared purposes and really doing the best for those we serve. I'd also help to make sure we deal with disagreements respectfully and build decisions through genuine collaboration. Right now, it's important that we start to rebuild trust. With 6 new potential members joining the Trust Board, we've got a real chance for a refresh and to bring in new energy. These elected new members will need your support. After all, you voted for us. We will need to work together to move forward positively and show what a united, inclusive board can achieve.
Lovely. Thank you, Greg. And lastly on this question, Gary, again, please. Is Gary still there? Gary Quick?
Sorry, trouble getting off mute there. Yeah, so I think the key thing here is teamwork. Again, noticing from recent attendances at trust events, doesn't feel like a team at the moment. We have a forum that we had in August. Clive Harrison spoke for half of it. and Nick Edwards spoke for the second half. Clive left the room, so it doesn't feel like it's together at the moment. Through my experience at board level, we have to embrace differences. We're not always going to get on with everybody that we're on a board with, but we have to be respectful. We have to make space for people to speak, and we also have to listen when they do speak. And everybody should be able to feel that they can participate in those important discussions. At the moment, I feel that some people may not have a voice because of maybe some people that are a little bit more confident and a bit more, shall we say, bullish in the way that they approach things. Is not going to be successful to bring a cohesive team together or working and pulling in one direction. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Notice, Dean, just to highlight again, there are some comments coming into the chat, which I'll hopefully you will pick up at the end of this. So we'll move on now to the final question, and this is staying with you, Gary. In the current football financial environment, with many deep pocket individual owners, can the men's team continue to survive in League One as part of a supporter-owned club? If so, do you think the current trust ownership model needs to evolve, and if so, how? So Gary, again, please.
Thank you. Yes, I do think that we can maintain football at this current level. I believe that we can only do that, however, by implementing a lot of what we've discussed tonight. Much better governance, much more engagement with the membership so that they feel included, they feel willing to help, and they are actually brought into the fold to help. So yes, we can, but we need strong governance and tight financial controls. I think that we must always evolve. Everything keeps changing. We must move with the times. It's been mentioned earlier on, there are partnerships that we could seek where we could generate more income. We're a community-based club. We're a fan-owned club. Not many of those around. We have a great story. I don't think we shout about it enough. And there are income-producing possibilities there, much the same as some of the German clubs have. We must be confident and positive and be seen as a role model for fan ownership. And I think with the right people on the board, we can do that.
Thank you, Gary. Greg, again, please.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it's certainly getting harder for supporter-owned clubs to compete in League One, certainly alongside those with wealthy benefactors, but I believe it's still possible if we're willing to evolve. Our model has real strengths. To stay competitive, we need stable income and to identify the right growth areas for sustainable progress. I see my main role trying to improve the commerciality of the club, help to identify multi-year partnerships that fit our values and community, create smarter ticketing and membership options, such as perhaps family bundles, targeted offers without undercutting loyal season ticket holders. And also making better use of non-match day opportunities. We can also massively improve match day income by raising quality and availability with new innovative ideas. I'll bring experience, discipline, and clear targets. But we need to be ambitious. We need to be a bit more bullish about ourselves and proud of what we are and who we are, because with confidence and smart business thinking and a bit more open-minded leadership, which I think we'll have from several of the trustees, I too certainly believe a supporter-owned club can hold its own in League One and possibly beyond.
Thank you, Greg. Matt Moore again, please.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe our men's team can continue to compete in League One under the supporter ownership. It's challenging, but with smart management, realistic budgeting, and a united supporters base, it's absolutely possible. That said, our model has to keep evolving, not by giving up control, but by modernising how we operate. This might mean new commercial partnerships or digital initiatives, but always on our terms. The key is staying majority supporter owned, or giving the club every chance to succeed on and off the pitch.
Thank you, Matt. Matt Phillips, please.
Yeah, I'd echo others. I think the trust ownership model shouldn't be a limiting factor, but I do think we need to reset where we're going. I think the club needs some direction, and actually we need to really think about what is the strategy of the club. Are we going to focus in on youth development? Are we going to focus in on trying to build a brand around the story of the club, the past with Brazil, etc.? I think the piece of work needs to be delivered to really understand what a strategy could be. And my aim, as you'll see in my manifesto, is to make sure that we have a trust club strategy that can be presented to members at the next AGM in 2026, with consultation with the community, the Exeter City community, the wider Exeter community throughout, to make sure that we develop something that is aligned to what the members and the fans and the community wants. I don't really think it's for any of us individually to define the strategy, but I really do think that we need to work out what we want this club to look like going forwards, so that we're all in alignment as to what our expectations are on the pitch.
Thank you, Matt. Nick Bryant, please.
And I can echo an awful lot of what Matt's just said there, in terms of just starting from that clear strategy, working out where we want to be, and engaging our fan base in that. In terms of some of the specific things we might want to look at as part of that strategy, I think it's probably around some of the strands that others have mentioned, looking at potentially structured benefits of trust membership without disenfranchising those loyal supporters that have been in since the start, looking at opportunities around maximising match day and non-match day income. I think there's clearly some work to be done in terms of looking at potential for future share issues, but balancing that against the need to not cede trust control and majority ownership over the football club, and of course looking at existing shareholders and trying to encourage some investment there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Nigel Edwards, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we can be competitive in League One. I want to pick up on one aspect here, in that we already have, private shareholders in the club. They own sort of 43% of all the shares, but they've contributed nothing since Trust taken majority ownership. We need to move to a position where minority shareholders are engaged people and invest in the club. And that is probably that is unlocked through a first of all, through clearing those untraceable shareholders, and then conducting a rights issue, which the trust and trust members could take part in. So that will lever more money through for the club that way. So I think we need to get from the position where the trust is almost on its own to having private investors who, whilst minority shareholders, can inject more money into the operation.
Thank you, Nigel. Peter, please.
Hi. Yep. So to answer the question, yes, absolutely, we can be competitive at this level. And so, quote a manager who's well known in these parts: as a trust, we just need to be better. If we can't even organise a board meeting professionally, what are the other things that the trust does that it doesn't make a particularly good job of at the moment that could be improved? So strategically, I'd propose a review of the trust purpose and also its role vis-a-vis what the club does. So specifically within that, I'd include the question of outside investment and under what conditions would it be acceptable. Personal view, yes, but it's got to be for sustainable purposes and without diminishing trust control. Hearts, as in Heart of Midlothian, seem to have attracted a £10 million investment of this ilk recently. Membership scheme, we need to be clear what we're trying to achieve with the membership scheme. But again, looking at what Hearts do and their figures, it appears that they raise more money than we do, even once you've taken into account their much bigger fan base, stadium size, etc. I'd also look then into how both the trust and club go about their off-field business. Ensure that fundraising is complementary and aligned, not competing. Look at new ideas, how existing ones can be made more effective for fundraising. These sorts of things.
Time up,
my bread and
Peter.
butter. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Richard, please.
Hiya. This is the big question. Can the men's team continue to survive in League One as part of a supporter-owned club? Yes, it can. We're good at punching above our weight. This is the golden question, though, that needs to be asked of our members. What do members really want? The models work so far, but the next steps need to be widely discussed. This is where reality smashes against ambition. It's clear that we do not have a player budget that reflects a survival norm in League One. To increase our player budget to that level, let alone a much higher budget to achieve success, it has to be sustainable year on year. But to my mind, there are a number of opportunities and we just need to explore those.
Thank you, Richard. And lastly, Tony again, please.
Thank you, Andrew. My point of view on this, I want us to be a sustainable League One club. When you've been a supporter for 40 years, it takes a very long time to get back to League One. So I don't want to give up League One status in a heartbeat. What is clear is the club off the pitch isn't scoring as highly as the club on the pitch. We've allowed our costs to become unsustainable. And critically for me, we really haven't maximised our unique difference as a community-owned club. The current aims of the club and the trust have stalled. Members feel disconnected from the trust. So the opportunity is there, using the trust's 5-year strategic plan, to use it as an opportunity to engage members in what they see as the answer in the very short term. However, if any manager can keep us in League One, Gary can. We need to start an inclusive member process and ask people what they think is achievable and attainable. The most important thing is to change that culture. The trust does not belong to the board of society. It belongs to the membership.
Thank you, Tony. That's the minute up for that one. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of the pre-submitted questions. Dean, if you can come back in, because I know that there are some points that have been raised and some questions that have been raised in the chat. And it may be that you can answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
So I'll just run through them. The first one from Damien. Do we have any explanation for the non-attendance of those who've given apologies? I think it's important to understand why they're not here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know that Quinn Elliot is in hospital. These have come in sort of quite late, but actually when I see the reasons, Quinn is actually in RD&E as we speak, and has injured his hand. Nelson, he's had car issues and is stuck on a motorway somewhere by the looks of it. Debbie is a private apology.
Okay.
Put that, and Nikitas was a apology a couple days ago. He's currently traveling around in Greece between a netball game and a football match, I believe. So
okay,
hopefully that answers your questions on that one.
Okay, comment from Alistair Yates. Can we be careful about people's non-attendance as a victim of poor communication in the past? Along with Deborah, Joe, I urge caution. They may have provided adequate notice of attending a meeting at a poor time of day on a Sunday. Tony, who's obviously on the call, the secretary did inform other candidates that he'd only received apologies from 3 of the 4 30 minutes before the start of the meeting. Thank you for that. Damien, I think that question has been answered about which candidates were these and the reasons given. Alistair Yates, interesting, my hearing aids missed the Dean initial audio section. Fair enough. Thank you. Danny Parker, how many of these candidates have a background in finance? I heard from Matt Phillips that he is an actuary, but other manifestos aren't clear. Referring to leading terms or working in local government, etc. It would be useful to know how many candidates have financial qualifications and or experience of working in financial roles. Thank you. Really good, Hustings. thank you to all candidates. So I don't know if we can do a very quick round robin of the candidates that are online at the moment. How many of you do have a background in finance or a financial qualification?
I mean, my name's been mentioned, but yeah, I'm a chartered actuary, fellow of the Institute of Actuaries, and also a chartered enterprise risk actuary.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Any others want to put their head above the parapet and declare, declare a financial background?
Pete, you go.
All right, cheers. I'm not an accountant, but I used to be a chief exec, and I used to do the accounts for my company and all the budgeting and what have you. So not in the financial industry, but I've got a pretty good understanding of accounting and finance and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other volunteers?
Yeah, I used to be a finance manager for the NSPCC and also school bursar, where the accounts were for grant maintained schools, so they had to go through to full accounts. And I think that's about it, actually.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else?
Yeah, as my manifesto says, I've had a 40-year to date career in financial services, spanning retail banking, compliance roles, governance roles, main board roles, and I'm a chartered financial planner. And I've also been the chair of the resources committee of a primary school for many years, with responsibility for the finance and property functions.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else from the candidates want to declare a financial background?
Not a financial background exactly, but I don't have a qualification, but through a lot of my career experience, I led the production of business plans. So that involved close collaboration with financial colleagues. And I would just say that I think one of the ways a football club can demonstrate financial stability to fans is by actually publishing a public version of their business plan. Some of the issues that they've suffered recently, I think, of a result of not having adequate financial planning and unrealistic budgets.
Thank you, Nigel. So moving down now, there's a question. So I'll give every one of the candidates an opportunity to answer this. And the question is, what would candidates do to get young fans on board the next generation of the trust? So I'll go in alphabetical order again. So Gary, quick, if you want to provide an answer to that question. I know I've just suddenly thrown that question at you, but is there anything you'd like to say?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
Yeah. What would candidates do to get young fans on board the next generation of the trust?
Okay, well, I think it's engagement and mentoring. I've done a lot of mentoring throughout my career, bringing new people into our industry. And, we need to include them now in things like working groups. We need to probably engage more on the social media channels that they are using. And we can even go out into local schools, colleges, etc., and talk about the club, put the message across, get more interest, and just really bring them in and build their knowledge and skills. And hopefully they become the next generation of trustees and custodians of our club.
Thank you, Gary. Greg, did you want to say anything on this question?
Yeah, I think they're definitely vital just because they're our next generation. Sort of just in my head at the moment, I'm thinking that you could look to perhaps co-opt a couple on the board, just to go on to Gary's point there about mentoring, that they can attend meetings, add a bit more flavour, perhaps a little bit more updated ideas of what sort of the younger generation is saying, what they're mentioning, but also sort of that social media output, which they could probably help with as well. So I think there's real opportunities. And from my point of view, I think we really need to sort of either co-opt or really encourage, certainly, this year, I know there's a couple standing, but certainly next year, maybe sort of a couple of them, really having a go of putting themselves forward for a trustee.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Matt Moore.
Hi there. Having two sons at 14 and 12, the 14-year-old's just joined the trust. And it's really just to work out and have a chat with them and interact with the next generation, really, and what they want to do and what we're not doing so well at the moment that we need to do better on. I think it needs to be communication rather than talking at people, us listening, taking feedback, and then putting those plans into action.
Lovely. Thank you, Matt. And Matt Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, again, echoing what others have said, I think one of the things that I've spoken about is setting forward a strategy. And obviously, it's really critical that we get engagement across all of our different membership groups, including those of the younger generation. I know the Trust and Change group have been contacted by Grecian Gen Z, and we have, they're a group that we would like to engage with going forwards. And obviously, we'd like the trusts to make sure that they engage with them. I think also it's something to be careful of is to not pigeonhole them into specific groups. So comms might be somewhere that naturally you might think that they might want to go, but I know it's been mentioned in the chat, Quinn was someone who was pushing the finance points quite heavily, and I'd imagine he might want to sit within the finance working group. So something that I've seen that's worked well previously is shadow leadership teams, and if there are people of a young generation who maybe want to take on roles within the working groups as a shadow leader, I think that that's something that can often be very successful. To also help upskill people into future leadership roles and board members.
Lovely. Thank you, Matt. Nick Bryant.
Again, I think just echoing a lot of what others have said, really. I think primarily it's about listening to understand what it is that younger supporters can get from the trust and how they can effectively engage with it. But I do think there's probably something around trying to develop a pathway, possibly through co-option, possibly through shadowing, to try to help to shape and develop the next sort of generation of possible trust board members. So I think that's quite important. And I think stating the blindingly obvious, of course, it is about really honing in and developing that engagement approach through the trust. And I'm sure there's an awful lot that can be done in that space as well.
Thank you. Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo all of those points, really, I would actually just say that, I sat next to Josh at the last Trust Board meeting, and I'm really impressed, actually, that there are so many young supporters who are prepared to turn up to things like the Trust Board. I think there's something here which is about looking at the structure of the Trust Board and the working groups such that we can draw more people into the working groups, and whether that's a young or other diverse groups. There's the Trust Board has got a number of pretty crunchy, responsible roles here, where for example, the club has got sort of the trust rather has loaned, getting on for £1 million in unsecuritized loans. That is those are quite weighty matters at a trust board level, but at a working group level, getting more young people involved in those should really be something that we should do when we reform after these elections.
Thank you, Nigel. Peter.
Hi, I'm really annoyed this question's come up because in my 1 minute close, which I assume we're going to be doing after this set of questions, I've actually put something about Gen Z, and I thought I'm going to clean up their vote here because nobody else has mentioned them. So I won't reiterate what everybody's said because I've got that in my close anyway. But one thing I would just point out is I think there's an opportunity in the way we transition from junior Grecian into trust member. I certainly know my own son and daughter. I don't remember receiving anything from the trust saying renew your membership, you now need to be an adult member. And so we must lose people who were paying for their junior Grecian memberships. So I think there's a financial opportunity potentially around that, but I think also some consultation as how we manage young people who might leave the city of Exeter. They go off to university, do they come back or not? How do we keep them engaged and signed up as members? So speaking to their parents and also those children about how we retain them as fans long term, I think it's something that we could certainly get better at.
Thank you, Peter. Richard?
Yeah, thanks. Young fans are the future of the club. There's a definite disconnect between leaving the junior Grecians and trust membership at 16 or 17 or 18. Really need them to be very active and find activities and tell us what they want. Engagement is key. GGs need to become more active in recruiting as wide a membership as possible to become an influence and to have an activity program that perhaps there's a youth trust.
Thank you, Richard. And lastly, Tony.
Thank you. I was a teacher for 10 years working in local schools, and I currently work for a charity which supports young carers in schools age up to 18. So this is something I've got a big personal investment in, and I keep banging the drum about culture, but we've got to make sure that that culture enables positive engagement. We don't want anything just to be seen as tokenistic, really. So thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So just scrolling down, the next question is from Thomas White. Dean, I don't know how you're going to do this. I know you said about sending out some supplementary questions for written answers from the candidates.
Yeah, we kicked off sort of 15 minutes late. It's in my head.
Yeah.
We've got until 9:15.
Okay.
I think any questions that come into the chat, feel free to ask away, Andrew. I would just add again, any that were sent in to me this week, they will be sent to candidates and written answers will be published online. So don't feel the need to ask those questions again.
No. Okay, lovely. So question from Thomas White. An outside investor offers significant investment to the club that could enable it to grow. However, could a clause be in place that the owner keeps up to date with player wages and HMRC statutory commitments? And if not, the trust immediately takes over? Quite a technical question. But again, I'll go around the candidates. So Gary, back to you if you want to offer an answer to that question.
Quite a lot to unpack in that one.
Yeah.
I'm not a legal specialist, so I couldn't possibly comment on whether there would be any sort of legal soundness to an agreement of such nature. I think, if you do hand over control to an investor, a private individual, etc., or a corporation, then I don't see how you could, my layman's position would be, I don't see how you could possibly enforce that. And therefore, I think that would be quite a potentially dangerous route to go down, given that I believe that the trust model is fit for purpose if it's run correctly.
Thank you. Greg, did you want to say anything on that question?
It's a bit of an ambiguous question there. I think really we've got, I think as a trust, I'm here because I stand for the trust. I believe in the trust. But I think in my mind, I think you can always have conversations with people. There's no guarantee by having a conversation with somebody you're going to go one way or the other. But I think as part of being a trust, I think we should close doors to ideas or suggestions. So I think we've got to be open-minded to it. But obviously no decisions can be made without, the trust board and its members. So I guess for me, really, it's yes, I think conversations can be had, but with caution, just purely because I still believe that the trust model does have legs in it.
Lovely. Thank you, Greg. Matt Moore, anything that you wanted to add?
I'll probably echo what Greg just said, really, about things. I think there's always worth a conversation about these things. I think we've been, personally, we have been approached by different people in the past about different jobs. You always hear people out sometimes, but see what they've got to say. But, we're all here for the trust. We want the trust to succeed. We want the trust to be successful. But, we always are here open to listen to what people are saying to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Phillips.
Yeah, I again agree. I think as trustees, it'd be remiss of them to not speak to interested parties, but ultimately the decision would then come down to members. I think the trustees would have a responsibility to do any due diligence. And I think the critical part of this question is around what safeguards would then come in place should something like that to ever happen. So the specific safeguards, I don't know, but I would imagine in the instance of interest, the trust would want to have financial security to be able to save the club should something go wrong in the future, to effectively be able to purchase it back from another owner. Now, this definitely isn't me suggesting that that's a route that I would want to go down. I believe in trust ownership, and I think it's the right way for us to continue developing. But along with all of my other answers, I think a key focus is to go out to the wider membership and to understand what strategy they want. And in the instance where an outside investor comes in, it will be the membership's decision, but it will be the trustees' responsibility to ensure that there are safeguards around that. And that's what I would be keen to ensure.
Okay, thank you. Nick Bryant.
I think that summarised probably more articulately my perspective on this, in the sense that I'm a passionate believer in the trust model. I think we should be open to conversations around possible inward investment and external investment from private individuals and organisations, but that needs to be subject to appropriate due diligence, the appropriate safeguards being in place, and fundamentally around key decisions. That needs to be something that's canvassed across the wider board, the wider trust membership. Thanks.
Thank you. Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a proud trust member, and I'm quite very attached to the trust ownership model. But of course, you know, we should look to the you know, the opportunities that a private investor might bring. And I think actually what we were talking about earlier around freeing up space within the share register for private individuals to get invested is certainly one way of achieving this already without the trust relinquishing its majority ownership. So I think the hypothetical question that's been posed feels like it, you know, could easily be answered through mechanisms that are already in place, and that I'm pleased to see the club starting to look at, which perhaps is overdue, frankly.
Thank you. Peter Loader.
Oh yeah, so I did actually touch on this on the answer to the last question. So I'll just try and expand on that a little bit. So the way I'd approach it is, first of all, I think we need to get an understanding of what parameters would be for an acceptable type of offer. And that sounds like the sort of thing we ought to put to our members to vote. So we could research different models and come up with maybe 3 to 5 different types of things that we could put to the vote. So it could be a bit like Brexit, because we may end up having a vote that we want to have the club bought out and not the trust have a trust anymore. But let's assume that doesn't occur. So that then puts us in a better position to know what type of investor we're looking for and might find attractive, and would know that the trust is likely to support. My own personal view is yes, I would. Clearly, any such investment, we've got to consider what the cost is. My view would be that an investment should be for sustainable purposes. So not somebody says, I'll give you a couple of million so you can have a crack at promotion, but once that money's run out, you're on your own. But if you look at the Tony Bloom investment in Hearts, if you believe what you read, which I'd love to talk to some of the Hearts directors and what have you, then the 10 million has gone in. It's a personal investment of his, but it's for sustainable purposes, getting things like access to his Jamestown analytics and those sorts of things. And it's critically, there's no voting rights. I think he gets 1 seat on the club board or the trust board, I can't remember which, as a result of that. So that's the sort of thing that we might find is acceptable, but that's just a personal view. Clearly not the view of all the members.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
I'm a strong advocate of trust ownership. It's got us where we are. We can't do anything without a membership vote anyway. I would never say never, but there needs to be a strong safeguard before the investor can run into debt. by stipulating if player wages and HMRC statutory commitments are not made, the trust immediately takes over. It's really a bit too late then. There needs to be strong cash flows that show that the club is solvent well before that.
Thank you, Richard. And lastly, Tony.
Thank you. My position, I want to retain a minimum of 51% community ownership. We already have a mixed ownership model, but we get no benefits, as Nigel said, from those other shareholders. Circumstances may require a rethink, but ultimately for me, we have to get our own house in order as a sustainable business. That's the starting point. Secondly, and very importantly, we have to ensure the trust has those tangible assets to ensure the club can never be sold from under our feet. Without those assets under trust control, the club is very, very susceptible to a shark. So for me, we have to have those assets under trust ownership, and that gives us a much stronger bargaining position to start with. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Right, so returning to questions and points raised in the chat. So Josh Annett says, the issues most of you are standing on have been ongoing for well over 12 months. However, it's worth noting that only the younger members standing for election actually attended the Open Trust meeting of over a year ago, and that only Quinn Elliot formally requested the reinstatement of the 3-month reserve, which was both minuted and followed up with written correspondence to the Trust Board every month since. Given the financial situation we now face, will you commit to reintroducing the 3-month reserve policy funds and ensuring that it cannot be reduced again without full member approval? So do all the candidates agree with that proposal, or if anyone doesn't, do they want to come on and explain why they don't agree with that?
I'll stick my head up.
Okay.
I think the 3 months is a simplified solution to a very nuanced issue around cash flow forecasting. There will be naturally peaks and troughs of cash reserves through the course of the year. So for instance, in May, June, there should be a significant amount of cash through season ticket revenue. That will be depleted and run off through the course of the year. And actually, it's much more important to have a reserve that aligns to your requirements at a given time, rather than a fixed reserve at consistent periods throughout the year. So I'd like to see much better financial planning. I think it is important that there is a reserve that it's in place, but I think what that reserve is should probably be flexible through the course of the year. The other thing that's difficult to commit to is we have a lack of understanding as potentially new trustees coming in about what the existing financial situation is. And it's difficult to commit to a 3-month reserve when we don't know how much cash is in the bank. So until there's been a full appraisal of the financial position by new trustees, then anything like that, it would be awful for us to commit to it and then be able to fail on day one. So I don't think that it can be committed to.
Thank you, Matt. Do any of the other candidates want to comment on that? That issue from Josh?
I'd be happy to comment.
Yeah.
So yeah, just well done, Matt. I thought that was a really good summary. You covered 90% of what I was going to say, and I had you as a question mark when you get my vote earlier, and your performance has got me definitely worked for me tonight. The only thing I'd add then is to that conversation is just about the trust's own resilience. So I've got a concern as to whether the club has reduced its budget by the amounts that required it to suddenly demand 400k from the trust, because my understanding is the trust isn't going to have 400k to give the club again in June next year. So I think the question should be extended to include what resilience the trust should retain. And my suggestion would be, as I said earlier, that it's for those occasional events like 3 defenders suddenly getting injured just before the January transfer window, where that's something that was critical to put right to preserve our future in League One for this season. But again, the trust needs to recognise that once that resilience has been blown, it needs to have a plan for getting it back so that it can be restored and used again in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Any of the other candidates want to make a contribution to this comment stroke question from Josh before we move on? No? Okay, lovely. Thank you. So moving on, question from Alistair Yates. Not sure who might be able to answer this, if anyone at all, possibly Dean. Will you be expecting a trust independent audit of the activities since 2018 and in particular events of last May and lack of circa 1 million to 1.5 million reserves and asking for funds? Will you ask for a 12-month forward cash flow to make sure next May, June, there are no issues with cash flow?
I think that would be a question for the AGM next week rather than the Hustings.
Okay.
Is that all right? And then,
yeah.
and just looking at the time, I've been keen for all the candidates to get their closing responses in properly.
Okay.
So I'll make that about sort of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
1 minute each, and then myself and Andrew will close following candidates closing, if that's okay.
Okay. Question, and I think we can answer this just with yes or no, and I will go through around all the candidates. From Lawrence Overend, is the trust model more important than success on the pitch? So hopefully a quick answer from all of you. So starting with Gary.
Honestly, don't think it's relevant to answer that, to be fair. I fully support the trust model. We will continue to try to play at the highest level that we can. What that constitutes in terms of success on the pitch, I don't know what it means. Does it mean finishing, one place again above the relegation zone every year, or at the top of League Two? Who knows? I don't know. Okay,
thank you, Greg.
Yeah, difficult in agreement with Gary. Sort of, not quite sure how to answer that one really. Can it not be equally as important? I think there's a good trust. Sometimes there's the good inner workings equate to happening on the pitch and vice versa. Sort of not quite sure of the importance of that question, to be honest with you, and really how to answer that.
Okay, Matt.
It's probably same with Gary and Greg, really. I think of all these things, we seem to be going in the right direction with both, on the pitch, I think we're still proving ourselves as League One team. The trust, it needs some work on, and it will be changed, and hopefully in the next set of boards will come in to make it more successful, really.
Thank you, Matt Phillips.
I think the answer is neither. For me, it's about having a football club that is sustainable and always looking to improve itself. If that is going to lead to success on the pitch, great. If it's backed by a trust model, even better. But if the trust isn't fit for purpose, then it needs to be addressed. If success on the pitch isn't happening, then that needs to be addressed. It's about both working together to improve both sides.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think it's very difficult to answer that question in a binary either or way, because as others have said, it is about both those things, and it's about ensuring the integrity and the ongoing sustainability of Exeter City Football Club. I happen to believe that at this moment in time that is based around the sort of trust model, but there's no reason that can't be harmonious with success on the pitch. But as others have said, what success might mean for me might be different to what it might mean for somebody else.
Thank you, Nick. Nigel.
Yeah, the question really is a false choice. I mean, the trust, the football club at the moment is, in its 4th year in League One, which since, we had 4 divisions in 1958, it's only I think the 3rd time that we've managed that. So the trust is being as successful as, and more successful perhaps, than any of the other previous owners. But of course, there is the opportunity to flex the trust model so that we can get some private investment in. And we've already covered in detail through across a number of us how that might be done. So I just don't think that, I agree with Matt, really. It's neither really. That's it, really.
All right, lovely. Thank you, Peter.
We got some good politicians on here sitting on the fence, haven't we? My view is, definitely the trust model is more important. The objective of the trust is to enable the club to be sustainable at the highest level possible. To quote Mr. Caldwell again, we need to be doing that better. Can I also ask a question of Mr. Overend? What was behind his question? Perhaps when we've all finished answering, he can share that with us.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Richard?
It's just revisal of our mission statement, which is to be a sustainable club at the highest possible level, whatever that level might be. I'd love to have a pop at the Championship, but I accept that struggling League One and building is on the cards. Based on 3 wins on the spin, I'm quite buoyant at the moment.
Thank you, Richard. Tony?
Yeah, my view is we've just had a fantastic win over Plymouth Argyle. I want to be a sustainable community club that plays Plymouth Argyle regularly and doesn't, for a long time, play Torquay United in Conference South. Thank you.
Yeah, but playing Plymouth regularly means relegation. We don't want that.
Thank you. Right, so moving on, a question, and Dean, I'll get your opinion on this one. It's from Damien Mills. Are you satisfied members of the previous trust board fulfilled their fiduciary obligations as directors of a community benefit society? I don't know if we want to open that up to all the candidates or whether that might be a question for the AGM.
Yeah.
Dean, I don't know what your view is on that.
Yeah, AGM.
Okay. Max Saunders, do you feel equipped to handle the relationship between the trust and the club effectively? I'm just wondering whether people might want to reflect on that in their minute summing up of why they are standing for election. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Keith Stone, I assume that's Cheggers. Should trustee membership contributions be increased? So again, just a yes or no, starting with you, Gary.
Yes, undoubtedly, I think they should. My bone of contention is that the discussion around the increase and how it was arrived at has not been made public, but I do think it should be increased, yes.
Thank you. Greg?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Matt Moore?
Yes, but people need to know what they get from the increase in the membership.
Lovely. Matt Phillips?
Yes, but I think that there should be an option for an incremental increase over time to allow people to get to the new amount.
Nick Bryant?
Succinct, yes.
Thank you. Nigel?
Yes, but we should probably look at generating more rewards for members as well. So that's something we should take forward as a trust board.
Thank you. Peter?
Yes, I agree with what Nigel said. We need to look at what we're trying to achieve with the membership and design it accordingly and take into account what others have done and what's worked and hasn't.
Richard?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a feature on the website that highlighted that £100,000, which we were donating to the club in 2003, it should now be somewhere in the region of 195,000. So we've not kept pace with inflation. We have let the club down. So it's right. We should do it.
Okay. And Tony?
You're on mute, Tony.
No, Tony.
I'd only be repeating what everybody else has said, Andrew, so it's getting late.
Okay, that's fine. Lovely. Thank you very much. I'm just going to skim down and see what other questions there are. Where do candidates see the future of SJP in terms of full ownership and development? I'm conscious that we are sort of
I think
running out of time.
any others, Andrew, I'll take them out the chat following this and
Okay.
I'll circulate.
Fabulous. All right. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Thank you all for making my job pretty easy this evening after the difficulties of actually joining the meeting initially. And I will now hand you back to Dean. Thank you.
Yeah, shall I if I let everyone else kick off first with their closing statements. I haven't got the alphabetical list, sorry, Andrew. If you could
Gary
Gary
Quick.
first.
I'll do this bit as well.
Thank you,
That's
mate.
fine. Gary Quick.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I just sort of go back over a little bit of my manifesto. One of my major sort of issues is that I think the trust has ceded too much control to the club over the past few years, which I believe has resulted in some of the recent issues. The governance is not really being strong enough. I don't think that we've really been acting as active owners. We've been too passive, and I think it's time that that changed. One of the things that I would like to explore if I was elected and could get a consensus with the rest of the trust board is to push for the club board to be reconstructed. We currently don't have a CFO. We don't have a CEO. I think those two positions, whatever you want to call them, managing director, finance director, should be board positions. Those people should have skin in the game in terms of the decisions that are made at board level. I believe we should have two very well-respected non-executive directors who should be ideally local and have some connection to the club, but possess the skills that are needed. I believe that there should be less trustees sitting on the club board to prevent getting too close to the inner workings of the club and being potentially sort of dragged along with decisions, etc. And the sooner that happens, in my position, I think that's what we need to do.
Lovely. Thank you, Gary. Greg.
Mine's a little bit of a call to arms here, so here we go. So Titscore, Exeter City is much more than a football club. It's a living, breathing community which is built on pride, honesty and shared purpose. As you'll be aware, if it wasn't for the trust, the club simply wouldn't be here today. Every time we see the red and white, we're reminded that this is our club, owned by its supporters, shaped by our values and strengthened by our collective belief in doing things the right way. I'm not standing because I think I have all the answers. I'm standing because I believe in what we can achieve together. Our trust model has shown that fan ownership works, but now we have to be better. We need to learn from our mistakes of the last few months and rebuild on the success, striving for greater transparency, stronger governance, and continued focus on our supporters at every level of decision making. If elected, I'll bring energy, professionalism, and openness to the board, always acting with integrity and putting the interests of our members first. Together, we can protect what makes Exeter City unique and ensure that our club's future is one we can be proud of. I'd just like to thank everyone for their time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Matt Moore.
If elected, I'll focus on strong governance, protecting trust ownership, and modernising membership so supporters feel truly involved and valued. Exeter City is built on loyalty, transparency, and community values. I'll champion that on the board. Together, we can restore confidence, strengthen our foundations, and ensure our club thrives for generations to come. Thanks, everyone, for tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Matt Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really obvious through the engagement of tonight and also the previous fans forums that this is a pretty pivotal election. There's a number of concerns around how the trust and the club are operating at the minute, and that's what's driven me to stand this year. As a reminder, there are 6 vacancies available, which represents half of the trust board. And I think that's probably fairly unprecedented. Everyone who gets elected will have to step up and really contribute because there is an opportunity to reset the path of the trust and the club going forward. There is a slate of candidates standing tonight, Trust and Change. I think we have an alignment as to how we would like to see progress made by the club, but I'm also aware that there are some fantastic candidates here tonight. So I'd encourage everyone to really think about where your vote goes, because it matters. The manifestos are an excellent read. I'd encourage everyone to do that and to vote. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Nick Bryant.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think firstly, I wanted to reflect on just, in spite of the challenges that we're currently facing, that we've had a really good debate and discussion here tonight. And I think you can see from everybody who's taken the time to sort of stand for election, come to these hustings, and those of you sort of listening at home, that there's still an awful lot of goodwill towards both of the trust model and willingness to get involved. So for me personally, if I'm elected, I'll be really excited to work with whoever else is successful. Obviously, I'm standing on this sort of slate, and I want to push for stronger governance, clearer goals, and open communication. And I think as well, if we can get trust ownership to the highest level that we possibly can and transfer those key assets, then that would be fantastic as well. That's what I was going to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Nigel Edwards.
Yeah, I'm just really heartened by both the debate tonight and actually the attendance and engagement that we've had from trust members. It's so encouraging. I haven't really prepared anything for the end, just to say that, you know, the really key things for me is that we need to strengthen trust ownership of the club by getting hold of the training ground freehold and the St James Centre into trust's hands as soon as possible. There are loans outstanding that are unsecured against those properties, and if those properties don't move soon, then we need to put some securitization in place quickly, because you know, there's trustees will potentially be on the hook if they fail to do that. The other thing is, you know, let's reflect upon the club board as well. As Gary said, that does need refreshing, and you'll see in my manifesto I have proposals for that include senior executives from the club being on the board so they have skin in the game. You know, we did not have that with the chief executive who's recently departed, and you know, that's something that you know, is a clear failing for me. Anyway, just to say thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you, Nigel. Peter.
You called me out then. So if elected, as I've said, I'd encourage fellow trustees to initiate a review of the trust purpose and its role vis-a-vis the club. Not one of these government reviews that takes ages and delivers nothing, but something where we got some thought through, researched options that members can vote on, that give the trustees a good sense of where the members would like the trust to go. My own vision is a fan-owned club based on a model that we're proud to showcase to the world, and I think the challenge is to continuously improve all aspects of trust and club off the pitch, so that we can give Gary and future managers more money to attract and retain better players, playing more attractive football, academy players we can afford to keep for a little while and actually see them play for us before we sell them on, and occasional chances of promotion when it all comes together. What I found in business is the harder I work and the more I keep doing the right things, the luckier I get. And I think that's the challenge for the trust. And if we do that, we can achieve the footballing outcomes we want. I used to be a chief exec of a management consultancy company that I founded, ran and sold. I think I've got a good inclusive style. I know I'm not always right, but I'm used to working collaborative. Anyway, you know what I mean, with colleagues. And I think I'm equipped to make a difference. And obviously, just to echo what's already been said, thanks everybody for your time tonight, and particularly those that have organised it.
Thank you, Peter. Richard.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks to Dean for organisation and Andrew for his chairmanship. And thank you as well for all 63 participants for staying the course. It will be an honour to serve again. We want I want to work for a positive culture, quality management, great supporter experience, good engagement and improved governance, and to ensure we are good custodians for future generations.
Lovely, thank you, Richard. And lastly, Tony, again, please.
Thank you. In summary, I'm a former trustee, supporters trust chair, formerly was on the club board, so I think I can hit the ground running straight away. I've been a Red or Dead contributor. I put in place the Pitch In for City campaign in 2011, which helped raise £125,000. So I think it's important when people are thinking about who they vote for, that trustees need to be active. They've got key experience and skills. I've been the club's groundsman, turnstile operator, program seller. There's pretty much very few jobs I haven't done over the past 40 years. I've got broad experience, ran my own business. Whoever is elected, and I genuinely believe that everybody sat around this meeting today are equally going to do a good job. What we need to pull together is clear leadership, clear strategy, and everybody working together. And I think I and others around this table can help achieve that. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Tony, and thank you to all of you who are standing for election. I think we can all agree that it's been a really good meeting this evening. So thank you very much for your candidacy and for your time this evening and being so succinct in your answers. And I'll hand back now to Dean to close the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, just to echo everybody in thanking those that are standing and have attended tonight and been brilliant in terms of debate and questioning. And to the guests that have also attended, it's a great number to see. Certainly the most I've seen on our Hustings with the trust. Just a couple of reminders. Voting links will be sent out this evening following the meeting. Like I say, just allow sort of lunchtime tomorrow. There's sort of 5,000 odd links going out. So allow till lunchtime tomorrow. And if there are issues, then let me know in terms of receiving those links. I'm just going to double check I've got people's photos in the right places and correct name spellings again before I click send. AGM is next Saturday at 11 AM. It will be held at Exeter College, just as a reminder. It's the first building as you go up to the tower on the left, but it will be signposted on the day. Other questions that were submitted, like I say, will be sent to candidates, and I'll give till Tuesday to answer, and then we'll post those online as well. That's all questions that have been sent in. Don't worry, it's not 100 to the candidates. It's 13, I think, off the top of my head. 8 on top of the 5 tonight. So I'm not going to be asking 55 questions of you. And like I say, tonight's recorded meeting has been recorded, and I will stop recording and then it'll download, and then hopefully we can get that online sort of tomorrow at some point for you to view, and those that couldn't attend, obviously. Thank you again. I'll call close to the meeting at 21:19. Hopefully see many of you next week at the AGM. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.